Cash Physical Therapy Headquarters podcast. Everybody, Ben and I are celebrating an incredible accomplishment today. We have our clients have officially crossed generating over $20 million since working with the clinical marketer team to grow and scale their cash physical therapy practices. And so today's episode is going to be dedicated to kind of like our core principle in what we believe is the right way to grow and scale practices, and what it is that we teach all of our clients how to do, which is to scale their impact, scale their revenue without scaling their workload. Because there's a lot of people out there that solely focus on increasing revenue. And even though they're growing and hitting big numbers within their practices, as their practices grow, their lives actually get worse, which is the opposite thing that we all want to have happen. And if you do it right, as you grow and scale your practice, your life should actually get easier. Ben, I mean, you're doing what, 150,000 a month right now in your practice?
Yeah, we hover around, we fluctuate between 150 to 200.
When did you work harder? When you were doing over $100,000 a month in your practice, or when you were doing about $15,000 to $20,000 in your practice?
Yeah, the toughest part within my business ever in the history of the business was when I was between that $15,000 and $20,000 month, just because I was literally having to do everything within the practice. I was treating patients, I was doing the workshops, I was scheduling patients, I was doing all the sales, first phone calls, building a website, like doing everything within the business. And this is what a lot of people considered a lifestyle business. You know, like I see a lot of people in the industry like hyping up the lifestyle business, where for those that are listening that don't know what a lifestyle business is essentially, it's like, oh, well, you've got your business, you don't have a boss, you don't have to manage employees, you see three days worth of patients, and you kind of do whatever you want to do on the other 4 days of the week. And I promise you, there's nothing lifestyle about that, because that's not reality. Because what you have to do? You have to do things on those other side of the outside of those 3 days to attract those 3 days of patients, right? You have to retain those patients, and you have to be rescheduling and canceling all the appointments that are coming in for those patients. You know, there's so many other things that go into it that I think people are kind of being sold a pipe dream on the lifestyle business of, oh yeah, you make $15,000, $20,000 per month, and you only work 3 days per week. No, it's working like 60, 80 hours during that time. That's considered a lifestyle business.
Yeah.
And now we're doing 150, 200,000. I work literally 90% less now than I did when I was doing 15 to 20K months.
Right. And which is crazy, because people they think that just firing their boss means that they're not going to have to work as hard, and it's going to be way easier because they're only seeing patients a few days a week. But like you said, you are wearing all of the hats, you're wearing all of the pressure and the burden of ownership, where you're constantly stuck in a state of anxiety and stress because you're always in a reactive state, having to make action based off of the ever-changing landscape and environment we all find ourselves in. And so it is astronomically easier, even though it's terrifying at first, to think about building teams and building better systems and starting to buy back your own time. But eventually, what we found consistently over and over and over again, as we've helped hundreds of practice owners scale their practices beyond them to $30,000, $50,000 a month and beyond, is that once you have a full schedule, you very quickly realize it's like, oh shit, my life would actually be a heck of a lot easier if I did hire somebody, because now not only am I full, but I'm missing, things are slipping through the cracks because I don't have time to do all the things. And you're constantly having to chase down new patients as people get discharged. And it's a really stressful place to be. And so what we want to talk about here today is the number one thing that we found moves the needle for practice owners who don't just want to have a job. They don't want to just build a business. They want to build a company that runs with or without them, where they're now in a position where they're building the team that builds the practice for them, where they get to focus on their zone of genius. Now, people are doing this a heck of a lot faster than most of you might realize. People are going from, we had Chris Smith go from, he was at about $15,000 a month when he joined. 12 months later, he was doing $70,000 a month, taking his kids to the zoo midday, working from home, completely removed from treatment. We had Christian Mercel, who went from doing home health, stuck at about $8,000 a month in his mobile practice, about to call the whole thing quits. 1 year later, he was doing $40,000 a month in his practice, had a team underneath him, and he was able to spend more time with his 5 kids than he ever thought that he could. Fast forward that one more year, now he's doing $55,000 a month. He's got 5 employees. He's got 2 locations, and he's generated $1.1 million. And he has more time freedom to go on vacations than he ever has before. And so this stuff can happen really, really quick. Ben, any other like stories come to mind for you from our clients?
Yeah, I mean, just to capitalize more on Christian's story, like it's not just 2 locations, like it's 2 locations on the opposite side of the country. And that's the thing too, and the beauty of it is he had the systems dialed in on the first location. Now it's just rinse and repeat. You can make that successful anywhere, right? And that's why we get such great results for our clients. We get results for people all across the US because it just comes down to systems and plugging the right people into it, right? It's where most people struggle is finding out how to do those systems and struggle for years and years and years, rather than why don't you just invest in yourself and get the blueprint to it, and not have to struggle through all of it. So I think, yeah, Christian's story is awesome, and it's just testament of like how fast things can change. And in under 2 years, he not just was doing 8,000, then ended up having 2 locations across on opposite sides of the country in under 2 years.
That's a massive life transformation that people are undergoing. And we've found, like, after scaling, Ben's practice, after scaling Clinical Marketer beyond, to be multi-million-dollar businesses, we noticed that there's really 4 primary like growth drivers and momentum boosters that people have. There's commitment. First, you have to obviously be committed to building the thing and achieving the results. That's a given. I don't even want to talk about that. But then there's structure. You need to be out of, these 2,000 steps. You need to know what step 1, step 2, and step 3 are going to be. You need accountability. You need people around you who are going to help you along your way to maintain the consistency that you need to have to hit your goal. And then you need support in a community behind you, because let's be real, being an entrepreneur is a pretty tough thing to do. It's a pretty lonely road. And if you don't have people around you, all the voices you're hearing are like, what if it doesn't work out? What's your plan B? What are you going to do? And if you don't have the right people around you, you'll start to doubt yourself. And that personal drive and accountability that you have will start to fizzle out if you don't choose who you're around very, very carefully. And so we can kind of summarize all of this stuff to be the number one thing that has driven both me and Ben's businesses down to proximity to those who are further ahead than you. Do you agree with that, Ben?
Yeah. I mean, we've all heard the story. You're most like the 5 people that you surround yourself with. Same thing with business. It's not just personal; it's business as well.
Right. And it's tough because in our own lives, I know a lot of us, a lot of practice owners that we help, they never intended to be entrepreneurs. They did it out of necessity because they knew they couldn't pay off their bills or their debt, and their working jobs are just tearing the life out of them. And once you make that transition to entrepreneur, a lot of them aren't quite ready for the complications and the personal challenges they have to go through, both in their relationships within themselves, how they view themselves, what they ever thought was possible for themselves. Did you have people doubt you when you first got started?
Oh yeah. I mean, and a lot of times too, is it comes from a good place, believe it or not. Most of like the hesitancy that I got was actually from my parents, and not because they didn't believe in me. It's because they cared and they didn't want to see, they didn't want me to go more in debt. They just didn't want me to have to take those risks. And it wasn't because they didn't believe in me or they didn't care. It's actually the opposite. And they thought that's what was best for me. Right. So that's the thing too, is you have to be able to, shut out that noise. And I've also had professors and classmates too. I remember when I was in 3rd year of PT school, had multiple professors and classmates tell me, cash-based would never work. It's not real, can't be done, and so you just kind of have to, so I kind of distanced myself from them. Right. And I don't think those words weren't coming from a good spot. It wasn't because, they cared about me. Like my parents discouraged it because they cared. As classmates and professors, they were doing it because they didn't want to be proven wrong, because then that would mean that, they could do it too, but they don't have what it takes or whatnot. And they have to realize that and confront it. So you got to figure out, hey, if where's that negativity, or where does that stem from? And does it come from a good place or a bad place? And figure out, hey, who should I distance myself and who I shouldn't. Like I didn't distance myself from my parents because I knew it came from a good place. I did distance myself from my professors and some of my classmates because I knew it wasn't coming from a good spot. Right. And so that's the power of proximity and making sure that you're distancing yourself from the people that are being negative about it.
Right. And that there's actually a few things that come to mind when you say that. One, it reminded me of the movie Pursuit of Happiness with Will Smith. Have you seen that one?
Mm-hmm.
Such a good movie. He says to his kid that never let anyone else tell you what you can or can't do. Just because someone else can't do something, they want to tell you that you can. And I think that's so relevant. I mean, Max and I were told no physical therapist would ever listen to a word we had to say when we were running our medical software company years ago. And today we find out that our mastermind clients, since working with us, have generated $20 million. And the amount of community impact that that's had is incalculable, right? And so I want to also say something about the law of averages, where you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And this is something that I've observed and recently helped someone else through who's in my life who's dealing with this, and their entrepreneurial journey is like, yes, we are the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. And so we need to choose who those people are carefully. But that is a pretty difficult journey, because one, a lot of us love the people that are in our lives that might actually be holding us back. And so it is a really difficult sacrifice to try to spend less and less time with them. And the more we go towards the version of ourselves we want to be, the more we change, the more the people that we're closest to are going to resist that. Because each one of those people who do love you, like your parents, and do want, the best for you, they just might have a different idea of what you think is best for you. They're going to hold on to you because because you leaving changes who they are as a person as well. Their view on the world and their own reality is forced to change because you're a part of their average of 5 people. And so by you removing yourself, you are changing the lives of those people and changing and shifting the identities of those people and having them to self-reflect. And so a lot of the people that you love, even though they want what's best for you, they resist you changing, and they're asking, why aren't you satisfied with what you have? What if it doesn't work out? What's your plan B? Because they're also afraid of the changes that are being forced upon them, as well as the changes that you have to make within your own life. And a lot of people don't realize that. And I want you to, because if you aren't aware of how your life decisions are impacting other people and how they're going to resist that change out of love, it's really hard for us not to self-sabotage our own growth. Right. So you had friends, you had a lot of people doubting you. We certainly have. And so if you're listening to this right now, just know that if you're going through that, it's perfectly normal. And that's also why it is so imperative that you find a group of people who are on the same life path as you, who are also going through those changes. Because one of the hardest parts about being an entrepreneur, especially when you're like really ambitious and have big goals, is realizing that in order to achieve those, you do have to, it is inevitable that you're going to start to outgrow your own inner circle. And if you're not aware of that, if you don't have a group of people to spend time with to kind of like emotionally help you through that process, you're going to sabotage yourself because it's extremely uncomfortable to outgrow your own inner circle. And it's being afraid of like losing some people or then looking at you differently. So you got to be aware of that stuff.
Yeah. And that's why I'm like so excited about this upcoming weekend with the event. Like it's so much fun to get around to other people that are practice owners. You know what struggles they're going through, they're going through the same struggles you are, and it's just really fun to get around a community and like that, and then also be able to be around other people that are having big wins, right? And then use that as inspiration too, as well. So it's gonna be a really fun weekend. And yeah, I think it's funny that you had somebody tell you that nobody would listen to you. Now you got over 100 physical therapy clinic owners flying across the country for the event. So
couldn't have done it without you, dude. You were the golden goose. Max and I had the audacity and the skills and the knowledge, but until you and I connected and we learned your unique selling methodology to couple with our like tech experience and just our entrepreneurial marketing knowledge, like I think we've created just the perfect storm together, and our clients are feeling the results of that. But like you're saying, man, the live events are so incredibly crucial. I remember the first live event that I went to and the energy that I had leaving that event when I realized it's like all the dreams that I have, like I'm not crazy. There's other people that were just like me. And I remember the very first time I went, I learned all these skills about how to like start my own business, get everything rolling. And I literally quit my job within a matter of days after that, because I realized it's like I can actually do that. And so the most important part about proximity isn't just like people being able to give you the answers to the questions you didn't even know to ask yet, so that you can stay in a perpetual state of momentum, but it is the shifts in belief that you have when you're around people who are doing big things, and the aha, the light switch that goes off in your brain when you realize it's like, oh shit, they aren't any smarter or better than me. They're just a few steps ahead, which means you can for sure catch up. And that's just like the coolest thing to see it happen in people when the first time they realize it's like they've been thinking small their entire lives, and now they see what they can actually accomplish.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing too, is like it also, by getting to these events, like it also humanizes the people that you see that are doing really big things. You realize like, hey, actually I've met them in person. They're not anything substantially better than I am. They're not really special. They just had a different mindset, got around the right people. And so that's the thing too, especially in the digital age, you see different people online and whatnot. And it's hard to have that human connection and put somebody on a pedestal as well. So I think these events and be able to get around and actually speak with these individuals that might be further along than you, it humanizes it and makes it more of a reality that you can accomplish it too. I don't know if you've experienced the same thing, but that's been true for me for sure.
100%, dude. That's actually like my favorite part about going to events. And it's really important that you always find a room that's big enough for this. Otherwise, it's like you lose out on some of the best parts about live events if you're the biggest fish in a pond. But my favorite part about an event is when I'm around other people that make me realize that I am actually thinking small. Like, to me, doing $10 million in a year, that's like a really big deal. But to some other people, they're like, that's not a big deal. That's not a big deal at all. That'd be an emergency if our business did that. And so one of my favorite pieces of advice I've ever heard was from Myron Golden. It was that you'll rarely make as much as, but you'll never make more than the amount of money that you think is a lot of money. And so I love getting around people that make me realize it was like, oh snap, that like big crazy goal you have, yeah, it's actually not that big of a deal. And once it's not that big of a deal, you can actually hit it. Right. That's the power of proximity right there, man.
Yeah, and that's a big reason I moved out to San Diego too. Like, I was living in Des Moines, and there's just not a whole lot of younger people doing crazy big things when it comes to entrepreneurship and real estate. There's mainly people in their 50s, 60s, and whatnot. And so, like, that's a big reason I moved out to San Diego. And so I can realize I'm thinking small and whatnot. And so, like, this upcoming weekend, I'm going to an event with two buddies I made out here. And one of them has raised his company's raised over $500 million in capital for real estate. It's just like, makes me realize like how small, my thinking is, right? And there's just different levels to this game. And it's just getting around people really helps you open your eyes to that. And yeah, just change the way that you're thinking about things.
Right. It's a pretty undervalued way of looking at it as well. It's like you and I, of course, always look at it like, all right, how can we think bigger? How can we take this thing to the next level? But I think a lot of times as entrepreneurs, like, we get so stuck up in our own numbers and so lost in the month to month, day to day of the grind, where we forget just how far we've come. And it's easy to get really down on ourselves about like, God, I just suck, because all we see is the parts that we don't have perfected yet, that we haven't figured out yet. So it always feels that we're losing. And I think another piece that's incredibly motivating, that lights a fire under people who are feeling like that, is getting to go to events, getting to get around other people, and getting to having the opportunity and chance to mentor someone who's a little bit further behind than them, because it forces us to realize just how far we've actually come and how much we actually know. Because we forget often that the people around us don't have nearly as much experience or context that we're able to have. And just the act of being able to support someone else, whether it's emotionally, tactically, in whatever way, it makes us realize it's like, I actually do know what I'm doing, and I've made a shitload of progress. I can't wait to figure out how far I am next year and who I get to help next year. Because it really does light something underneath you when someone else, you get the admiration from somebody else about how far you've come. I think that's a really underrated portion of this whole thing too.
Yeah. There's a balance. There's a balance to all of it, And I also like not just helping other people that are maybe not as far as along, but also comparing yourself to who you were last year. I actually just did a performance review with one of the higher ups for ProKinetics just an hour ago, and we were talking about like, hey, what do you feel like we did well? What are some things that we struggled with? And we're still challenges that every time, no matter what season you are in business, there's gonna be challenges, right? Some challenges are bigger than others, and we're just going through a big growth phase, and we're going through challenges. And one of the things that we did was actually reflect on like, hey, this time last year, May 2023, where were we at? And like, what were we doing? What were some, like, how many PTs do we have? What was some of our bottlenecks and whatnot? We like realized how much we'd actually grown in the last year. And it really kind of just made like the challenge that we're going through not seem like such a big problem because we're so much further ahead. So also comparing yourself, what I'm trying to say is also comparing yourself to who you were a year ago, right? Or a few months ago, right? Can also be something that helps you as well along the journey.
Yes, I love that. And to go off of that, I'd recommend every single one of you, everyone listening to this, write down what your goal is and make sure that it's a good, worthwhile goal. Because if it's too attainable, it doesn't mean quite as much. Write down a crazy goal and save it somewhere and never, ever, ever get rid of it. Because as of late, for the last several months, we've been stuck right around $110,000 to $150,000 cash collected every month. Revenue right around 210, 220 every single month. We've been stuck here. And years ago, this was like an unimaginable dream, a fairy tale in my head that I'd be able to do this. And I still have the note I wrote back in September 7th, or no, this before September 7th, 2021. Consistent 100K months while still maintaining lifestyle. Got it written right here, and I keep it under my rock. And lately, or not lately, but a few months ago, I was really kind of bummed out. I was like, we suck. Like, we can't do more than 200K in revenue a month. And you sound like a total, tool, like complaining about that. But stuck is stuck, right? But being able to look back at things like this and realizing it's like, hey, your emergency or your problems right now today were your dreams not too long ago. And so that's really important perspective to have. So not just proximity to other people, but proximity to who you were not too long ago, so you can keep perspective on how far you've come along the way.
Yeah, I think that's huge. And it used to be like, oh, I was worried about where was my next patient coming from. Now I worry about, hey, where's my next physical therapist?
Yeah.
And where's the next location? Like it's just a different. So it's good to reflect and just have that context and that perspective.
100%. I think that kind of highlights the fact that it's like your problems will never, ever, ever go away. So don't tie your happiness to your business because it's always going to feel broken. You're always going to feel like an idiot. You're always going to feel like you have no idea what you're doing. So you got to find that stuff elsewhere because as soon as you solve one problem, another one just takes its place. And that's another reason why it's so important to stay inside of a community and have proximity to the people who are further ahead than you, because every single time you uncover one of those problems, if you're on your own, it's a problem and your business plateaus and your momentum stops. But when you're inside of a container with other people who are on the same journey, who are a few steps ahead, every single time you find a problem, it becomes an instant opportunity for growth because you have instant access to the solution. And in many cases, you even get the solution before the problem even happens. You can overcome and prevent a lot of these problems from even happening altogether. So important to find your tribe, find your people, find events like this, because Ben and I's lives have been completely transformed by these kinds of events. We wouldn't have the audacity to think that we could do what we think we can do if we weren't going to events and meeting people, doing huge things, and realizing that they're no different than us.
Yeah, spot on.
Excellent, everybody. If you guys got value out of this, if you're looking for more proximity and you want someone in a team to help you make sure that you stay in a state of momentum, to make sure that your vision becomes your reality this year, I invite you to go to clinicalmarketer.com, take a look at some of our communities, get into our Facebook groups, get some of our free resources. And if you jive with what Ben and I have to say and you want to discover what it would look like to partner with us to help you make your vision your reality, just fill out the contact information at clinicalmarketer.com. And I, of course, would be more than happy to follow up with you and see what it is that we could do to help you turn the corner within your practice. So if you got value out of this, make sure to like and subscribe. Follow us. If you have any questions, any topics you'd like Ben and I to chat about, make sure to drop a comment. We'd love to hear from you. We love chatting with all of you. But everyone, have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.